Hello, hello. It's Thursday morning. And by the way, just real quick, I'm not going to go into a ton of sales announcements, but it's neck and neck this week in the West. And LA, smallest division, but very mighty, is right there competing with Desert Mountain for the 1 and 2 spots. It is super, super close this week. So it'll be really exciting to see who finishes first. So I know there's a lot of competitive spirit out there between teams and divisions and that. So super, super fun to get to watch this and just to see everybody out there winning with appointments and sales. So two topics today, two topics. Orthodoxy is really interesting. I don't want to talk about it in a way that you've heard before that's familiar. I want to talk about orthodoxy and sort of a new way of thinking about it. It's something that I dove into a lot last year because we hear this term orthodoxy and it's like, yeah, I'm doing things orthodox, right? But what is that? What does it really mean? And I have something that over the years, from my experience as a publisher, I realized what it meant to me and how it helped me perform at a very high level. So I just want to share a few of those things. And then I also have a strategy that has been shared with me and I've seen many people use around when do I call someone back? So there are many philosophies on this, and I have one that I think you'll find very helpful as you manage time throughout the week. So what is orthodoxy? This is kind of a piggyback from Dave's message yesterday morning, yesterday, Wednesday, March 27th. Whenever you're listening to this, though, Dave Duran talks about orthodoxy quite often. It's a really powerful thing. It's helped build a massive business and a great opportunity. And when I think of orthodoxy in terms of the sales processes, and you can apply this to customer service, you can apply this to maybe even other things in life. But when I think of the sales process and I think of orthodoxy, you can think of it like a line, like very linear. A to Z, 0 to 100. Maybe I should do that backwards here. I don't know if the screen's flipped, but the sales processes in orthodoxy is something that's very linear. Now, in the world, whether it's phone calls or in an appointment, there can be disruptions, chaos, resistance, and those types of things take us off of this line, right? They pull us up here, they pull us down here. And so orthodoxy to me is about how do I bring this question, resistance, objection back to this line so we can keep advancing from A to Z. And that's what orthodoxy is to me. So I have some examples, right, of what it means. And I also believe that we hear things on a conference call, or we hear it from another publisher, or we hear it from a coach or leader, whoever, and we're like, yeah, that sounds great, but that's not my experience. That's not how it goes, right? So when we hear that, we have a few different choices or options. One option is, I don't think that person knows what they're talking about. That's not my experience at all. And things are going a little bit different for me, or when I hear that, I say this and it doesn't work, or whatever. Another option might be, um, maybe it just doesn't even sound familiar at all. It's like, I have no idea what that person's talking about. I haven't had that experience. That's pretty neat, right? Sometimes, maybe not. Or it could just be, uh, which is the way that I found myself using over the years when I heard a best practice, or what I would consider an orthodox practice, a best practice in that regards. It's how do I get my experience to match that? What do I have to do? And in my just, my belief at this point, and this is BVM and outside of BVM, what really makes the difference in terms of getting to that place, to that best practice, is the effort and the willingness we have to maybe change something or alter something or try something new that we haven't tried to get that best practice to actually work, to be effective. And then what does it mean to work or be effective? In our business, it's 100%. This is really kind of a life thing as well. It's a probability or percentage thing. There's a movie, Anchorman. I haven't seen it for a long time, with Will Ferrell, and there's this scene where he's got one of the guys in the office has this cologne, and it's terrible. Everybody says it smells, and he says something along the lines of 60% of the time it works every time. And that sticks out to me because it's very true. We can think of some of the greatest athletes. I know we do a lot of sports analogies, but they're easy to refer to. Babe Ruth is considered one of, or maybe the greatest baseball player. I'm not a huge baseball fan, so I don't know. There could be, one of those debates out there. But he hit the ball give or take 3 out of 10 times, right, throughout his career. So that means 7 times he struck out. But he most likely approached every single pitch, every time he stepped up to the plate, with enthusiasm, with the confidence of I'm gonna knock it out of the park, right? And that's what we have to do when it comes to orthodoxy or best practices. Is we have to, show up our best self and put in that effort, that willingness to reach that best practice, so that a percentage of the time it's effective and it works. And when we can hit the ball 2 or 3 out of 10 times, we're doing pretty good. Especially when you have 15 appointments in a week. That means you're knocking out, 2 to 3 new sales in a week. When we have best orthodox practices, meeting with the right types of businesses, the right mix of small, medium, large, all of these things, and you build a very massive business, in, depending on how big you want to go, not much time or a lot of time, and kind of you can look at it different ways, but it's pretty sweet to be in a position to do that many appointments and write up that many orders through orthodoxy. So what are some things that knock us off of orthodoxy? Well, we're in the business of people, and people have their own emotions, their own, things they're carrying with them through the day. So I'll just think of some of the simplest ones to me are in an appointment. Uh, we through the 5 buying questions, one of the most common areas to get resistance. And I know there's 2 things we do right now, which is most people are using what generally has a very high closing percentage, where the business owner is picking the ad size or using the question when it comes to ad size, how do you see your business? I know some folks have found that they're able to write up some larger orders more consistently when they're doing what they call the big package, or they're just presenting a full page or something large. Obviously, the exceptions to both of those would be if you're sitting in a meeting and someone shares, when you're going through the magazine tour, they might say, oh, that's me. We only do half pages. We only do full pages. We only do inside front cover. Like they just tell you what they want. So when we get to that area, at that point, we are simply saying, hey, earlier you said you're a back cover kind of person. Is that what we should look at? Yeah, absolutely. Right. Okay. So you have to have some awareness and some flexibility, when you're working with people to do that. But that's an area, just an example of where we can get an objection or resistance, something such as it all depends on pricing. Now, going back to this idea of orthodoxy and something that's linear, you know, they're not answering the question. The question is when it comes to ad size, how do you see your business? We've educated them first, right? There's a little bit of context to that slide. We've read through the different descriptions. An 1/8 page is for a small startup business, a 1/4 page is for a business desire to grow. The words are right on the slide, so read off the slide. It's absolutely perfect and amazing as it is, obviously. So but when we say when it comes to ad size, how do you see your business? And they don't answer, well, or they give another question, or they just, it depends on pricing, there's sort of a deflection. That is something that knocks us off orthodoxy. So here's our straight line. That takes us down here or up here, whatever. We're off the track, right? Maybe it's a train track that we're on. So the skill set in the bringing it back to orthodoxy best practice is figuring out how to work through that, not skip over to go around and just go, okay, I'll just show you a couple options and we'll figure it out. That is skipping over orthodoxy. That is skipping over a best practice and trying to circumvent the challenges presented. When we learn to deal with the challenge and work through it, we get really great results or outcomes. So what are some examples of how to work through something like that? Well, I call it the resistance dance, and this applies to any objections, by the way, where we're just really trying to create understanding. In this case, might say something like, hey, I totally get it depends on price. I actually have hundreds of different options, so it'd be kind of challenging for me to just pull out all those prices. But let's do this. Let's walk through the different ad sizes and let's figure out, maybe we can find a starting point, and that will at least help. Is that fair? Right? That's one way to do it. Another way is simply to say, hey, I have hundreds of options. It's really hard to generate all the pricing and go through everything. It can be really, really confusing. That might sound familiar because that's the text, the actual language that we use in the talking points the first time we ask for this here. So we'll share something like that and say, and it'll, I totally get that it depends on pricing. We're just not quite there yet. If you don't mind helping me out though, if we can just, find an ad size to start with, we can always make adjustments if we need to, based on what you've looked at here so far, in the descriptions. When it comes to ad size, how do you see your business, right? And they will then, usually after you have some good context and ask again nicely, they will pick one and move forward, right? So we're working through the resistance to still hit our objective. Let's call our objective orthodoxy. Orthodoxy in this case is them choosing an ad size so that we can advance into pricing. So if you have particular spots where you're like, gosh, I've been skipping around this, or there's a hole in my business here, and you have an awareness of that, would love to connect with you, figure out some solutions to work through it, because operating, bringing, if you want to make a deal, right? So from putting someone on your list, getting the appointment, showing up to the appointment on time early, completing the appointment top to bottom, not missing any holes, not skipping anything, and writing the order on the spot. None of that. I'll email it to you, calling back later. That stuff is just always messy and unfortunately really drops the closing percentage too. So that could be an area of orthodoxy that could be dug into. Am I making sure I sign on the spot, or am I kind of going, yeah, I'll send you something and just sign it later? That really can not go well. So pretty rough. But anyways, those are areas. So different types of orthodoxy or things to think about. So how am I lifting my efforts and my processes to meet orthodoxy? The other thing I said I'd talk about, I know I'm going kind of long on this video, so I'll try to wrap this very, very short, just a strategy for following up. I used to despise the word following up because I was so black and white on things. It's like I've either got an appointment or not an appointment, right? One of the CEOs I used to work with when I worked in wealth management with celebrity athletes. He was kind of a funny guy, really interesting. And if anybody, and I was fortunate to be very black and white and kind of on the same page with him with a lot of my thinking, although that's a whole nother topic. But that can also not be beneficial, but there are certain things we want certainty on, I guess you could say, be very clear. And if someone told him, well, maybe, or they just didn't have a clear answer. He said, well, I don't really believe in maybe. It's kind of like pregnancy. It's yes or no. It is or it isn't. And helped him build a really great business and a lot of great relationships and clients and things like that. I think that's really important to get to in a meeting. We either have their signing and we have a new client, a new prospect, a new sponsor in the publication, super great, or they've said no, not right now for whatever reason, but the reason should be very clear. There should be no opportunity for me to go, I wonder what they meant by that, right? It should be some version of, hey, I know you said it's not the right time right now, but tell me this. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything, and this is where humility comes in really powerful. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything or forget anything. What is it specifically about the timing that makes this, not a good time for you, I guess? Or, one of my favorite questions, what, if anything, could we do to help make this happen today? Or is there anything, what, if anything, could I have done to help you come on board today, right? Really powerful questions. Questions are clarifying questions, and questions that bring in context and specific answers are really, really great, especially in sales. So there's that. So anyways, okay, so I was going to talk about following up. So in the most simplest form, a really great strategy. People often, we can spend a lot of mental energy going, when should I call this person back? I talked to them and they said, or they canceled or they moved an appointment time. Instead of thinking about it every single day and wondering, or calling the person back every single day, which some of you might actually be good at, there are some people that have this super pleasant, persistent personality, positive, has a lot of peace, where they could actually call someone back every day and not feel like they're bugging them. I did do that once for a job, which was really interesting in my 20s, in my early 20s. So maybe there's some space for that, but maybe that's not for everybody. Or I don't know if I would have been good at it doing it here, calling someone back every day. But a really simple strategy that I found to be very effective that people enjoy too. So it takes off that mental energy of when should I call this person back, is let's say you have an appointment cancellation or a no-show, or someone on the phone says, call me back later, whatever, something that wasn't a definite, didn't come to a completion. On Fridays, after we have our normal new 3 S's, 3 people we haven't spoke to before, because we don't just want to keep recycling appointments or things like that. We want fresh and new all the time. That's a key part of growth in anything in life, is new, fresh, new, fresh. Would be to set aside some time. And I find that lunchtime, like 11:30 to 12:30, was a common space where I found people to do this. And that's just their 20-30 minutes of like call back these people time. And I actually heard this one time. I think I heard it on a live phoning back when we did a live phoning on Friday or something like that. And the publisher, and I've seen it a lot and talked about it a lot with the people that are doing something similar over the years, but it was, hey, I know we missed our appointment earlier this week, or we missed our connection earlier this week, right? It was a we thing. It wasn't a you didn't show up, or hey, I missed you, or it was a we, which is really, really powerful. So it takes the pressure off of the other person, doesn't make them feel like you're calling them and like, hey, you missed the appointment or whatever it was. Yeah, I know we missed our appointment earlier in the week, or hey, I know we missed our time slot earlier in the week. It's Friday and I'm looking at my calendar for next week, had a couple of slots, figured we could find a good time, to make this happen. I have Monday afternoon at 2:30 or just whatever, you offer a choice of 2 times, but there's something about that, the end of the week, middle of the day, end of the day, whatever it is, where gatekeepers can be more gone. We get more access to business owners sometimes. And we've already generated all these new, fresh leads. So we have that sense of confidence that we're going into next week with good, healthy, new stuff. We're just piling on a few extra. And it also gives us certainty that we have a specific time every week to call these people back versus wondering, when should I do it? Anytime there's uncertainty or things that are lagging that we haven't closed the loop on, haven't come to a conclusion on, they can drain a lot of energy. So I think that's a really, really powerful practice. Hope you found these 2 things super helpful. And hey, let's finish the week strong with yeses and some sales. Have fun.